goals? What are they're optimistic, but still staying away from?
Well, I'll go with Safa. I mean, people are concerned without a doubt about what's going on in tech. And you turn on the TV and they say, we're laying off 10,000 people from Amazon. People are like, whoa, what's going on? And we hear it. New York is a real estate town. It doesn't mean we don't have tech. There's two families who have huge seed stage areas where they bring companies to fruition. So it's, if I said incubator here 10 years ago, people would have said, where's the hospital? They now know what that is. And there are some here, right? So it's not that it doesn't affect us, but the billionaires in this city weren't made from tech. They were made from real estate. That's just the nature of it. LA is very different. So yeah, maybe we're a little insulated. People are concerned. It's not that they're not concerned. But I think it was sold with such doom and gloom in September and October that it was 2008. It's going to be worse than 2008. Blood all over the streets. And everybody was like every family I knew was like, I don't know if we're going to allocate this quarter. And now people are not happy, not jumping around, not saying I'm getting 22%, but they're like, I think I'm going to go shopping for the holidays. Whereas, before it was like, I don't know where this is going. I think what COVID taught us, or at least a lot of families here and families, Europe's kind of different because the countries are more like states and the US is so big. But a lot of American family offices that I knew would not invest outside of the United States before COVID, just didn't do it. And now because of Zoom, and it doesn't seem like people are so far away and they couldn't go there anyway, that they started doing that. It was a little harder on families that had offices overseas and they couldn't get to them. And new industries have been created to address those things. I honestly think families are a little more relieved, with the exception of tech. And we were talking about FTX at our table because it was very involved in a certain conference circuit that is not nearly as good as 360. And they had underwrote it. And we kind of knew this fall something was going on because it was just very different than prior experiences. So, people are worried about that. But I also think families are investing more globally than they have before. I think there's a little sigh of relief if they're not tech, but tech will come back. Tech always comes back.
Thank you. And Safa, and in terms of your feeling for the future areas where you believe the path will be in, so that we could all run to that direction before the path arrives, what do you think is interesting right now to your fund, and what do you hear in Silicon Valley? What are the most modern thoughts?
Well, in Silicon Valley, we still are hearing more automation. Software eats everything. And I think some of that is going to get overdone. I talked about AI yesterday as a big promise, and it does have, but I think that will also be overdone. I mean, as I mentioned, it's our nature to just overdo things, go so very fast. Europeans don't do this, but we do it and it works. We go very fast, hit the wall, and then, fix our head and then go back again. In terms of the areas that I think would gradually evolve is there are probably a couple of areas that are very exciting, I think. And neither of them are very flashy or sexy. One is in healthcare, and it doesn't mean just fancy drug discovery, AI-enabled treatments, but making the entire process of providing for care and keeping people healthy far more efficient and far more effective. Especially in the US, we really suffer from that quite a bit. And if you look at how much automation, how much efficiency improvements we have had in the healthcare over the past 20 years, it seriously lacks even areas like education and certainly banking and other areas. So I think if you're looking at where we could really have some significantly different landscape 10 years from now, I would look at healthcare. And the second one would probably be in transportation. I don't know what model of transportation will work necessarily. I'm not a big believer in autonomous vehicles going everywhere, but I do believe that there would be some ways that we will be able to go to different places more cost effectively with less pollution and in a more timely manner. Right now, transportation is still a big component of our planning. It really shouldn't be. I mean, Zoom kind of taught us that we could be everywhere we want, but Zoom doesn't quite solve everything. And I don't think Metaverse will solve it either, despite what Zuckerberg thinks. So we still are, we're people. We need to be near each other. We need to see things. And to do that, we need to move a lot of people very efficiently, quickly. And if you see places like Toronto that's getting really dense, for instance, this is what they're going to face. How do we move people? So as I said, these two are not really areas that you would hear a lot about, but those are very interesting. I am scared by social media, to be honest with you. I was scared by crypto, but I think that's kind of passing. It will gradually kind of get to its own place. But I think social media and what could come after the social media would be more interesting, because I may be of the minority here, but I think as a whole, social media has had a negative impact on our society. There's no doubt that it has been very powerful in connecting people and getting the news out, in organizing people. Those are completely true. But I see its impact in my own country, in Iran, and how it's really really galvanizing both the best and the worst feeling in people. And I think that is a dangerous capacity that social media has. So let me stop there before, because I could keep going on.
Yes, thank you very much.
You should keep going on. This is good.
Right, absolutely. So why don't we talk about the major disappointments which we kind of can crystallize now? You mentioned social media. You mentioned crypto, you mentioned metaverse. I don't know if many of you follow metaverse, but one of the surprises is that nobody now attends all these billion-dollar sites with the real estate, like 39 people for $39 billion 39 attendees for $39 billion company in metaverse real estate. So we also saw big disappointments in media in general, because now the entire media is trying to figure out how to return Gen Z, and completely new areas of media are emerging. But what other areas you think let investors down?
Well, I don't know that it's let investors down, but I think you have to look at, don't cringe, everyone. You have to look at climate change, not so much as, is it real? Is it not real? I'm not even going there. But so many disasters have hit Florida that the insurance companies are pulling out. Okay, so if the insurance companies pull out and you can't get your property insured and then it gets blown away, I mean, what are you going to do about that? And I was always also very interested in Florida, the community that survived. I'm sure some of you read about that, but it had all solar, it had dug down the roads to funnel away water. It was really well done in the middle of Florida. And they didn't lose electricity and they didn't get flooded out. And so I thought, well, it's disappointing. It's heartbreaking that so many people that are technology couldn't find where that thing was going to the last minute. That was part of it. It's horrible that we're getting these, I lived through Sandy. It's horrible that we're suffering those kind of weather events, but it's scary that the insurance companies are like, well, hey, thanks for paying us for all those years, but we're out. It's heartening that they were able to build a community that was right in the middle of this whole thing that survived unscathed. So I don't know that I'm disappointed. I'm heartbroken what people went through, but I'm also excited that something came out of it, because maybe that's how it has to go. Our family's in real estate. We've been watching coastal properties all along the coast dropping in value. People are like, yeah, it's a real nice mansion. We'll be like a couple miles in because of climate change. So, or because how the storms are going, it's really changing how people are willing to engage with real estate, and insurance is a big part of that. and the islands, and do people want to go there or not? Because they've been getting hit over and over and over again, some of them. We were talking about Puerto Rico. Sorry, Andrew. And how they have their company there. And I said, but don't you lose power every time there's a storm? And isn't that kind of disruptive to your businesses? So I've been excited about space because I told you that. I'm not so excited about the whole what's kind of going on with the climate and how that's affecting everything. For space, and Mark, I'll get you involved with this. I promise you. The country of Luxembourg has a space conference here every year. If you didn't know, there's a space council in New York. They're trying to pull U.S. space companies over there, and they're determined to build a spaceport, a Star Trek spaceport, and the Crown Prince is involved with that. So, and you really have to get involved and then take me with you.
To space or to Luxembourg?
Well, Luxembourg to start, space will go. I'm not afraid, I'll float.
I agree with Wendy. I can't say that any aspect of tech has disappointed, but I can maybe point to areas that it didn't perform well. And that is, broadly speaking, in showing any resilience. I mean, when COVID hit and we had just-in-time inventory everywhere, the whole thing crashed, basically. I mean, ships were lining up and there was no way to...
Schools, I have kids. We were sitting there for days going, oh, is this going to connect to the school? It didn't.
So in some ways, it was great, the capacity of internet and the servers to carry this much work with Amazon and Netflix and Zooms and all that. So that's impressive. But at the same time, it really showed us that tech can't solve everything. It can move things fast, but we need to build resilience in infrastructure, resilience in supply chain, resilience in people, resilience in really cybersecurity. I mean, cybersecurity is a huge risk. If it wasn't for cybersecurity, I think our democracy would function much better because we could rely on technology. We can't rely on technology, so some people will always claim that an election was stolen. If technology was really so good, there would be no way to do that, right? Because it's proven. So I think this was a great lesson for technology. And I think really, even though we wouldn't admit it, Silicon Valley is kind of reflecting inside and saying, okay, what was wrong and what should we do better in the next decade or so?
So I know you're going to cut us off in a minute. Just one question.
Reaction from
Okay, so I would ask Safa a question because he's really smart. And I'm curious because I'm in my 50s. Are the way that our younger generations are engaging with media and news going to cause the cable companies like Optimum and all of them to fail because everybody's streaming Hulu and nobody really cares about, you know, the regular cable channels? And if that happens, since so many of those cable companies host our internet from home, what happens?
I think that's already happening. And yes, the younger generation has already moved from Facebook and even from Instagram. They're going to TikTok and similar models, mostly TikTok. I'm somewhat hopeful that this will pass because I think we have gone through a cycle where the entertainment part of what we do is taken over and is defining everything that we're trying to get, especially for young people. News is mixed with entertainment. Communication is mixed with entertainment. Commerce is mixed with entertainment. This was a thesis I had actually 20 years ago that this would work, but I didn't think it would work this well. And it's just taken over everything. So I think cable companies have to come up with a new business model. If they want to do something right, they should look at New York Times. This is a company that almost reinvented itself behind everyone's back, and nobody has noticed it. But it is a very successful digital media and experience. People use different things on New York Times compared to what it was initially, all the news is fit to print. Yeah, print. So I think they have to go through that. Yeah, they have to go to reinventing themselves.
Any questions?
Yeah, let's make it more interactive.
I'll ask a question because you've been talking a lot about social media. Oh, thanks, Margaret. So my question around social media is, how is it that LinkedIn has been able to stay so focused and not become so much, as to your point, that all the social media has made everything about entertainment? So how has LinkedIn stayed sort of above the fray?
It's
Or
business,
if you-
right? Everything else is mixed media. As Safa was saying, it's entertainment, and I'm on TikTok. I admit it. It's funny. It kills like 15 minutes when I'm waiting for something. But I don't do business on TikTok, and I'm starting to see some business. So there's a logarithms for wealth management on TikTok now. It's a little nuts, but I keep my eye on it. Facebook is a mix of family and sometimes business. Instagram is, here's my pictures on my boat and here's my business. LinkedIn has stayed, at least I think, primarily business. It's what it's used for. Folks aren't really showing too many personal pictures or personal items. And so I think it's maintained its purity, business purity.
It's entirely functional and it hasn't mixed it with entertainment. It's totally very useful. I think it's the most valuable and underpriced platform. I use it all the time. It's very efficient. Because it hasn't mixed entertainment, it has maintained its efficiency.
Hi, you mentioned about social media.
When you ask, you can now who you
All right. Oscar Decotelli. Hi. You were mentioning about social media and that you're hopeful that it will go kind of bust or whatever that. Is that something that you're betting as an investor? That's where you're going? Or this is more of a hopeful, I have 3 kids. Of course, I'd love for them not to be as much on social media, but it is how the world is kind of evolving. And I hear there's millions of people in TikTok. They're getting financial advice from TikTok. Is no longer just a funny videos, people talking about different sets of life and everything. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about on the investment side, how you guys are playing those trends. You're playing against that, or do you think where we're going is like something that we can't fight, or is it a strategy?
Someone, do you want to take this?
Thank you. I can add a few words. Number one, almost all clubs, almost all traditional media sources, they're all reinventing themselves, as Wendy said. And the consumer experience becomes the core. So yesterday or the day before, I met a lady who is actually putting us viewers in the middle of the shows. So you suddenly become a part of the show somehow, right? And she's getting a lot of interest from traditional networks because the customer engagement is including. The same thing is metaverse. Metaverse is around sports right now. And you as a viewer can be in your home and experience almost everything you see on the stadium, because metaverse now allows you to look around, to tap on the shoulder of somebody next to you, to be next to the great player, because they have these micro cameras throughout the stadiums. And now when you look around, the speed of information due to all this computing and stuff like this is incredible. So you can stay at home and you can not watch TV, but be in the metaverse. And of course, many channels are jumping on this opportunity. So there is a real change going on in the way people get sucked in the performances, which before they didn't. And that's why TV channels were dying and many other sources were dying.
Mark, can I disagree with the moderator?
You gave me the word and I disagree. No democracy, really.
No, I mean, this is great. I had forgotten your affinity to metaverse. I totally understand.
I have an Oculus too. I'll admit it, and I love it.
I love it too, but I think it's entertainment and it's fun. Look, I think the reason I'm hopeful that there will be another evolution and into something more useful is because maybe kind of in a manner that Bill Gates is, I'm an eternal optimist in the long term. And this may be why kind of weird if you know my life experience. But I think overall, we are moving in the right direction. As I look back over the past 60 years, when I was a kid, our parents were saying the TV is going to ruin these kids. They're always in front of TVs. Well, it didn't really.
You're going to go blind.
And then, and then video games came, and then they're going to ruin these kids. These kids are always in front of them. It turns out that actually there was some good stuff out of them. And I think it's the same thing with social media, that there is a capacity in us that really can't be completely overturned. And that's why we are where we are. That's why we are the biggest species, well, not in terms of number, but in terms of capacity in here. We can evolve. So I think this will pass too. I mean, as I said, social media in some ways appeals and feeds some of the worst tendencies in us in terms of where it can take us. But we are self-correcting. So I think I don't know what form it will be useful. Maybe it will be metaverse. Maybe Simon and I will talk in metaverse in 5 years from now. But I think that there would be some new models.
Agreed. I think the metaverse for me is that it's going to, I don't have to give everybody my information. It's going to work for me instead of me working for it. And I'll do it real quick, Mark. But you look at TikTok. What did TikTok start as? 30-second dance videos. Right. And now it's a mash pit. It's like some wealth management, some dance videos.
Retail.
The mean
Retail.
Karen down the block, it's all this stuff, but they have an algorithm built in. And the more you watch of a certain type of video, the more it's fed to you. So as long as we recognize what the algorithms are doing, I want to blame people too, but the algorithm is directing you, and teach our kids, this is an algorithm. How do I verify? Where do I go to verify? If I watch a lot of this, I'm only going to get this. And that's what my kids are 14. So I'm going through this right now with them. Yeah, this is a function of an algorithm. So even if you don't want to, I want you to watch some other stuff on there so that other things come into your feed. And that's what I've been doing.
So we're unfortunately out of time. We could riff on all these things. And I actually disagree with a few of these things. I think social media, we're not bouncing back as well as we should. It's creating mental health issues galore. And we're in the system of preschool to prisoner. And we have to break these cycles. And as far as algorithms, it's more echo chambers.
It will probably get worse before it gets better. I have to say that.
You're talking about my voice?
That too.
Marjan has a question.
Mariana, okay, quickly.
On TikTok, I was watching observation from someone who really understands TikTok from China perspective as well from Western perspective. And one thing was apparent that if you are a child in China, algorithms are actually all set to provide you with content that is related to education, innovation, anything to do with learnings. Whereas outside of China, algorithms are created to actually occupy your mind. And what Mark said, it goes badly on mental health, especially children. There are lots of suicides because of social media. All of this is massive, massive problem. So I do agree with Rafa quite a lot on that. So let's see what's going to happen. Yeah, just want to say that.
All right, we're going to thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you.
our moderator, our panelists.
Come join our 361 firm community of investors and thought leaders. We have a lot of events created by the community as we collaborate on investments and philanthropic interests. Join us.